Welcome back everybody to another episode of Destiny Alpha gameplay right here today. Very much the final episode of this whole mini-series as well, and also probably the one in which I will kind of conclude my thoughts to some extent. But yeah, so far what we've done mostly is PvE, right? We've done a lot of the exploratory missions and objective-based missions, and also some of the whole tower hub area gameplay. But what we're doing today is very much PvP, just straight up player versus player online battling on a total of 2 maps, both of which I will show off in this gameplay as well, and all of that in form of one game mode called Control. And Control is essentially your typical domination kind of game mode, right? You have 3 flags on a map. Those you have to try to capture and then hold, and of course then holding them will give you points, and whoever has the most points at the end of the round will then win. A round is 12 minutes, yeah, totally 12 minutes long. And also in the case of this map you can get to ride vehicles as well, and I haven't really shown off vehicles too much yet. There was some minor vehicle gameplay in that last episode already, at least in the very beginning of it, but here you're gonna see some straight up vehicle combat even, and yeah, that will happen with 2 kinds of vehicles, I would imagine. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to ride a total of 3 vehicles in this whole gameplay clip right here, but only 2 of those are offensive. The third one, of course, is then the bike that we already used in that last episode as well. But yeah, what I am riding right now, very much, I don't know, just looking at the feel reminds me of a Ghost. Ghost from the Halo series that you might remember. It was more of this like alien bike or something like that. And here it also shoots very similarly. It drives and handles very similarly. The only difference being that with the Ghost, I felt like once you boosted, it was actually pretty static, right? It was hard to control. Handling just got worse the more you boosted. And here with this bike, it's less of that. You can still control it pretty well even if you're boosting, and that is something that I really just like. I always found it awkward that as soon as you started boosting, the Ghost was just so tanky almost, I guess, in the way it moved. But vehicles just control really well in this whole multiplayer. I do certainly need to stress that. What I especially like about it is the way they designed the sounds connected to those vehicles, because as you probably will realize, they're very like Star Warsy. There's this whole like whoop, 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 connected to it. You're like flying around. It has a really nice feedback, and they all control really well as well, especially the heavier one that I will use in just a few minutes here. You get a feel for how heavy it is just because it doesn't boost immediately. It has a little bit of a charge up and only then starts shooting, and it controls a little more like sluggishly. It's really nice. They did a great job, and I mean, I would expect them to as well, because vehicles already were a good part, or a big part I should say, of the Halo multiplayer as well. And maybe to give you a little background right to my whole experience right here, I have certainly put a decent amount of time into Halo games before and their multiplayer, so I would say 3 was the one that I played the most online, and something that also I very much enjoyed. I would probably go out and say that I'm now already kind of enjoying Destiny a little bit more already. Maybe it's just me being excited about playing the alpha and getting to try this whole new game and stuff like that, but I believe after thinking about it very, very hard, I can now exactly tell you why I am probably going to enjoy the Destiny multiplayer, at least like PvP multiplayer, a little bit better than the Halo PvP. And the reason for that is that with Halo, I oftentimes felt a little overwhelmed. For me, there was always this bigger focus on grenades and meleeing and stuff like that than on the actual guns. I felt like using guns, I couldn't really kill all that much. I would always have to end up close and then punch somebody. And maybe just for my playstyle, that wasn't so good. In Destiny, I feel like there's maybe a little bit more of an emphasis on the guns and how quickly they kill stuff. So for me, this is very much, it feels great. It feels great how fast stuff dies and how weapons, like actual guns, compare to abilities and vehicles and stuff like that. For example, also with the vehicles, something that I really like, as I now freaking shoot him in the head, they are not vehicles that you get inside of, right? You are not then protected by steel all around you. Instead, you're riding on top of them. They're more like bikes, essentially. And while that is cool aesthetically, what it also does is allow the infantry guys to take down vehicles, even if they, I mean, just looking at the statistics of it all, have the upper hand, right? Vehicles certainly is the stronger enemy. Like, it is the stronger part of that whole encounter. They are most likely going to win if you're not smart, but they do give you this little chance. The chance to just snipe the guy, for example. So, for example, if he's very far away, conveniently enough, that's exactly what I ended up doing right here. You can just shoot him out of their whole bike, and there will be, I think, even a better example of that in just a few minutes here. But hopefully you guys are getting that. Like, I'm really, really liking the way that they designed the vehicles, not just aesthetically, but also looking at the gameplay, because you are not necessarily going to lose against that. For example, in a battlefield, I feel like with the tanks, it's very easy for them to kill you. I mean, if you have C4 charges or something like that, you can totally walk up to that and blow it up very quickly as well. But if you're just there running around using your standard rifle, you can't really do much against a tank, and that totally also makes sense in that whole scenario. But with this being sci-fi, I'm glad that they didn't just adapt the whole tank shit that a Battlefield does, but instead went for this whole bike setup. And then again, I also couldn't tell you whether there's going to be exclusively bikes in the entirety of Destiny. Probably not. I mean, even in Halo there were tanks as well, in which you were like fully covered. But having this right here already felt super great, and was something I ended up really enjoying and appreciating. But alright, I mean, that is essentially the vehicles. I will now enter the final one right here, and that is very much a grenade throwing kind of vehicle, so a pretty heavy and strong one. Excuse me, my voice is kind of getting a little rusty there, but yeah, let's now talk about some of the other mechanics. It's not only similar to Halo, looking at maybe how the weapons feel and how the vehicles feel, but also how little like behind the scenes mechanics are designed. Maybe it's not fair to call them behind the scenes stuff, but for example, the mini-map, very similar to the actual like missions of Destiny, always gives you this red border whenever there's something close to you, right? So if there's a guy in front of you, it will light up red and show you if somebody's there, at least as long as they're moving, right? So it doesn't always show that, but if they're running around, you can totally see if something is ahead of you. And while that might be a little weird to the people that have maybe played mostly Battlefield and Call of Duty, I actually started just very much appreciating that, because it gives you this whole chance to escape a fight. Say you, for example, are reloading or something like that, and then you see that somebody's very quickly approaching. There is a chance for you to just use your jetpack, for example, to fly on top of a roof, and at that point they don't really know where you are anymore, because it doesn't show you whether somebody's above you or below you. It just shows you in which direction he is. So in that sense, it does allow you to escape, but it's not this like super ultimate conclusive combat tool. You can still very much just run into like standard fights, but a lot of the close quarters indoors fights that you are going to get into are very much based on the minimap. Like, you're paying a lot of attention to that most of the time. At least I am. I would certainly recommend making use of that, because it will eventually at least if you are good enough at the game at some point, then give you the upper hand in such a scenario. Because then you can really think about, what do I want to do? How should I react maybe? How are my odds maybe not that great with where I am right now? Maybe I should change something about the situation before it then already is too late. And that is something that happens very, very quickly in like competitive shooters. But here I feel like they give you more of a just leeway, I guess, and that is something I really like. So I guess in that sense it's very similar. Another thing that I absolutely need to stress is the following. You might be a little worried about how all the upgrades that you're getting in the missions are going to affect the multiplayer, because of course last time I even went out and said that I added damage to my semi-auto rifle that I was using at the time, and that of course would completely destroy the multiplayer if like high-level characters were just running around using stronger weapons than everybody else. But no, actually they totally also, as soon as you enter the whole Crucibles multiplayer thing, and that is totally what it's called as well in the game, it's called the Crucibles, this whole PvP stuff, they even say it at the very bottom of the whole like Crucibles description. The upgrades do not apply for this. Like every single semi-auto rifle in the online PvP is going to do the same damage. It doesn't matter if it's like a level 20 rifle with like a 200 damage output and your enemy is just using like a level 8 rifle with maybe like 60 or 70. In this whole game mode, in this whole scenario, every weapon type is going to have the same damage output. So in that sense it's very balanced. The abilities, I believe, still at least aesthetically are affected by your upgrades. So for example, I still have the one that splits up into little tiny ones, but looking at the damage so far, it seemed like that was balanced as well, and I would expect it to. I mean, it wouldn't make sense for them to cut back on the whole like weapon upgrading and then allow the exact opposite with the abilities. But the way it is right now, it does feel very balanced. It still has these whole or much rather I still had times when I was playing the online PvP right here in which I kind of felt cheated. Maybe that was just because of the connection issues, or because of some connection issues. It's not like I was really having a lot of those while I was playing, but every once in a while there was a match where I felt like my shots weren't really hitting as soon as I was expecting them to. And then again, that was only in like maybe 2 out of 20 plus matches, which I've done so far. And look at this now. Oh, so good. And that is exactly what I mean when it comes to like shooting, yeah, just vehicles or players inside of vehicles, much rather. So yeah, balancing is certainly there. That is something you don't really have to worry about. I couldn't tell you if, then again, like everything's in that whole mode is balanced, but the weapons and how they are affected by the upgrades, that is very much that they considered, and it totally makes sense. Everything else would have been so stupid. But yeah, what we're now also doing is very much entering the second map that they have here in the alpha. As I was saying, more of a close quarters, like urban environment, a lot of nooks and crannies, a lot of like hiding places, and still very much the same game mode, just no vehicles and a bigger focus on actual, yeah, like just gunplay essentially. So while all of that is happening, let me now also maybe talk a little bit about, yeah, just probably just a little bit more of my experience with this whole PvP and how it compares to the other experiences that I've had with the Destiny Alpha so far. So of course, when I initially booted this up and downloaded the Destiny Alpha, I was mostly excited about how they would do the missions. In the end, that is kind of the more revolutionary thing that the game is doing, right? This whole seamless integration of mission type gameplay with online co-op and this whole MMO kind of concept behind it as well. I was really excited about that, and don't get me wrong, I'm still super excited about that. I mean, if you've watched the past 3 episodes, you probably know how much I ended up enjoying those. But I then didn't quite expect to enjoy the PvP that much. I mean, a big reason for that probably also is that they only have 3 missions here in the alpha, so after a while I was very much done with those and didn't feel like going back, and instead ended up putting a shit ton of time into the PvP. Actually, yeah, I don't know, like earlier today I spent like 1.5 hours playing. That is also when I then recorded all of this right here. And like last night I ended up playing quite a bit. It's a lot of fun, and that should immediately tell you that I find this to be a really good multiplayer, and it's something that I'm really excited to see how they expand upon it in the final release. I'm excited to see how many maps there are going to be, and how many, yeah, just vehicles there are going to be, how big all the maps are, how they're going to vary in size and stuff like that. I mean, Halo already did it really well, but seeing as how they, at least for my playstyle, already then improved on the actual mechanics of such a existing model, I'm then very excited to see how they can maybe also improve on some of the maps and the vehicles and all that stuff. And that is something I'm certainly going to put a lot of time into once this game comes out. So I already said it last time, I was really impressed with this whole beta. Let's maybe also talk about this a little bit more. I mean, in the end, this is totally going to be the final mission of this whole mini-series. I hope everybody enjoyed it too. But this being the last one, I should probably once again stress what I like about it, why I like it, and what they maybe still need to improve. I mean, in the end, also releasing such an alpha is very much a chance for the developers to get some feedback and go back and work and tweak some of the things that they already designed. So yeah, I mean, you've probably gotten a very positive vibe by all these videos. You've heard me say that I was really surprised with Destiny, because I was very skeptical with it. When I initially sat down and started it, I was like, yeah, I'm not really having the craziest hype for this. I mean, I knew that I always enjoyed the Halo franchise, but especially since I never played 4 and also don't have an Xbox One, so I don't really see myself playing 5 anytime soon, at least not like it's not released yet, but once that comes out I probably still won't have an Xbox One. So in that sense, I've not been too invested into the Halo franchise for a good while, and that made me, yeah, just not be too awfully then excited about Destiny itself. I knew that they had done a great job with previous games, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every other game that you then end up doing is going to be fantastic as well. But that skepticism, that initial skepticism, certainly has been mostly diminished. It's kind of crazy how much I ended up enjoying this. I thought, yeah, let's just download it. It's kind of neat that I got the chance to play this, and I'm very grateful for that as well. I should also very much note that. But I then spent so much time with this, especially the PvP. I did that for frickin' ever. And always went back to it and always had a great time doing it. Yeah, despite maybe the few matches in which I didn't have the best connectivity. But it's really kind of nuts how good this game already presents itself with this just being an alpha. You have to really think about that. Alpha, I mean, maybe it's more of a beta, looking at how far they are with development. In the end, maybe it's more of a marketing move, and they just want to give this a name that very much distincts or like differentiates it from the beta that they also are then going to release sometime in July. But let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say that this is an alpha. If it is, that is really impressive, because this plays so well. It's kind of funny, I had this thought while I was playing, because earlier this year I spent $30 on Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, right? And that was something I was okay with. But then again, you don't get too much gameplay out of that game, even for the price tag. And now with this Destiny Alpha, didn't spend any money on it, right? and still I sat down and played this for a good, I don't know, I'm really bad with estimates, but I probably spent like a good 6 to 8 hours with this whole alpha, if I were to just go ahead and take a guess right here. And that is kind of crazy because they, despite all of this, despite this being an alpha, managed to put a lot of interesting shit in here, and it kind of goes to show that they're really serious with the release of Destiny. They want this to be a good game, and they have put a lot of passion into it. Absolutely, you can very much see that. It has similarities to Halo, of course. It's not the most innovative game, I feel, but it's nice to see that they are maybe mostly trying to just combine stuff that already kind of exists and make a new experience out of existing parts. So you have elements of an MMO, you have the whole hub area in which you can trade and upgrade and get new shit, and then you have the very tight Halo controls and Halo multiplayer. You also have fantastic vehicle stuff, you have really just incredible art design, and very neat like just co-op and also PvP parts in the game, which make this whole experience work for me. I mean, it's still going to be a different thing when it then comes to the final release. That is then going to be a different deal because you have to just apply some different standards to it, right? This is just a preview and I'm judging it by that. But if you then spend $60 on it, it's a different type of deal, right? So is this whole thing going to hold up after 50 hours of gameplay? Maybe even more. I mean, they're really putting a lot of like hype behind this. They're saying that they want this to be something really big, and maybe it's going to be like that, but I couldn't really tell you just having played this alpha. So while I'm super excited about it now that I've played it, there's still some mild concerns, and let's maybe now talk a little bit more about stuff that I would recommend to Bungie itself, what they should maybe do in order to make this experience even better. It's already fantastic, but there's still some minor tweaks, at least in my opinion, that would make this an even better experience when it then comes to the final release. So this is mostly me now just summing up stuff I've said already in the first 3 episodes, so maybe just sit back for that and enjoy the gameplay in the background. Also now this upcoming kill right here, which is just fantastic. Double kill using a rocket launcher after having just picked up the heavy armor like a few seconds ago. Really cool moment for me. But yeah, so I did say that the whole spider fight, for example, in that last episode was, in my opinion, a little bit too long. There was a period in that fight in which I wasn't really enjoying my time just because I felt like I wasn't really making progress as fast as I maybe wanted to. So maybe they still need to balance that a little bit. I do also very much feel that the loading times are a little bit too much, especially since it's not this interconnected big world. Instead, you have to hop from place to place. You have to go through these loading screens in which you are then inside of the whole like spaceship that you have, and fly, for example, from the mission that you were just in to the tower just to do some trading. And I'm okay with loading screens in between that, right? I get that you have to load, but I would really wish that they could reduce that to some extent, because if I just want to very quickly go to the tower and just spend like a few minutes there, maybe just go ahead and just spend like a minute there and sell some stuff, then I don't want to sit through the same loading screen that also then takes me into a mission. Maybe just reduce that. Of course, I couldn't tell you if that's possible at all, but it's something that would certainly improve the experience for myself personally. So hopefully that is going to be a part of the final release then. Some other stuff, I'm not exactly sure. I'm mostly okay with everything in the PvP that we're also doing right here. There's not many negative things that I can say. Netcode has been an issue, but a very minor one. Mostly it's been running really fine. And I can only stress again that I feel like this is really well put together. Everything feels so good. Controls, I've stressed this in previous episodes. But not only that, also the just surrounding mechanics work really nice. The whole minimap is something I can totally get behind. The vehicles as well, and just how the abilities are also kind of set up. I haven't really discussed this too much yet, but it's once again really nice that they are this rare backup thing that you can do. They're really powerful, they really are, but mostly there is this focus on gunplay, and that is just something I personally am enjoying very much. So maybe not too much of a criticism right here with all of this. Mostly also once again just connected to loading times, and also something that totally, there's a criticism right here, something that you could also still kind of put some work into, is the fact that if you have finished a match, and we will get to this in just a matter of seconds right here, you will see that I have then unlocked something as a reward because I did well in the match. And then you cannot immediately go into the menu and select that. Instead, you have to actually wait through another little loading screen. You have to once again be in the actual matchmaking system before all of those rewards then are applied to your character, and you can then select those. So I believe that will now happen. So yeah, you might realize that now that I'm then going into the menus, but that is mostly the stuff that I would criticize. It's not a lot. Positive so very much outweighs the negative for me with this whole alpha. The experience has been really great. Actually, I did not end up unlocking anything, but for example, the stuff that K1KS or whatever his name is just unlocked, he will not be able to apply that right now. He will have to wait for this screen to be over, and only then can go ahead and do that. And you have to then sit through another loading screen. It's just a little clumsy, I guess, in that regard. But anyway, guys, this is totally going to conclude this whole preview of Destiny, this whole little mini series that I decided to make in honor of the alpha, in order to kind of inform you on what Destiny is all about. So hopefully everybody actually enjoyed this. Hopefully somebody got all the informations out of this that they needed, that they required. And yeah, I mean, totally, as I mentioned already in that last episode, I'm going out and buying Destiny now just because of this alpha. So if you're gonna do the same, please let me know in the comments down below. In general, just what do you think about all of this? How did you enjoy this series? That would also be some really nice feedback for me personally. Yeah, it was a lot of fun for me to check this out. I'm very, very grateful that I actually got the chance to try all of this, and also then record this and spend maybe even more time with it than I initially would have. But yeah, with all of that being said, guys, I do want to thank you so much for watching. I will now return to my usual content in the form of Dark Souls 2 and eventually also some more Rogue Legacy. But first of all, there is that whole From Software title that we have to finish first. So guys, with all of that out of the way, goodbye and have a good one.